All right. Are you guys all still there? It just popped me on and off for some reason. I'm hoping that you can all hear me. Can I actually, before I go any further, just get a little thumbs up from someone in the chat box that you actually are hearing me? And that, okay, thank you, Margaret, that you're with me. Yeah, this internet technology, it's our friend. And sometimes, thank you, Michelle, for letting me know that you can hear me. All right, let's go back in and start into this process of knowing thyself. So, these are the four soul questions. I've taught these for over a decade now. They're not my soul questions, they came from my teacher, Deepak Chopra. This was a part of the meditation training that I did with him. I went three separate times to study with him at the Chopra Center. And the first time was just simply learning this meditation process. His process is called primordial sound meditation. It's a mantra based meditation. And so in that first week of training with him, it was just, settling into the process. And he starts every meditation with these four questions. He believes these are the big four. These are the big four soul questions that we circle around throughout the course of our life. So I will say, in the beginning stages of me practicing this style of meditation and dutifully asking myself these four questions at the start of every time I sat down to meditate, the things that came through when I asked myself, who am I, were essentially aspects of my persona. So when I asked myself, who am I, things would come up like, I am a daughter, I am a mother, I am a friend, I am a psychologist, I am light, I am striving, I am, just on and on. It wasn't until I went back to study with Dr. Chopra a second time, so this would have been many months later, that he dove a little bit deeper into this first question, which is really at the heart today of our conversation about knowing thyself. So what he explained, when we ask ourselves the question, who am I? We eventually will exhaust all of the different personas or aspects of our ego that we have taken on in the course of a lifetime. So he said early on in the practice of asking yourselves, who am I? You're going to hear those things. And it's not problematic. But eventually you become free of those statements, and instead you settle into a particular vibration. So when you ask yourself who I am, instead of hearing things like I'm a mother, I'm a friend, you start to feel a specific vibration, which is your essence. He would say this is your soul. So it's interesting that I practiced for so many months with sort of this repetitive answering back of all of these things, all these belief systems about who I thought I was, until I heard him on that second round of training. And maybe he said it in the first round of the training and I missed it. He's a fairly deep guy that sometimes I felt like I only got a small portion of what he was trying to explain. But finally, I heard that there is a vibrational frequency that is us, that is beyond all these ideas of who we think we are. And finally settling into that, it's a different quality. So what I'm essentially talking about is the difference between our ego and what I might call our soul or our essence. Now, I do want to spend just a couple moments, and I've spent time on this discussion many times before, so some of you may have heard this, but it bears repeating. There's a lot of information out there that I believe is quite erroneous about our ego. Our ego is absolutely necessary and important. So when you see things in social media like slay the ego, kill the ego, that's not good advice. I don't recommend it. Our ego is the part of us that develops, especially in the early years, by other people reflecting to us who we are, or who they believe we are, or who they see us to be. In those early years, we need this guidance. So this picture is actually me with my eldest son, Peter. This was the summer after he graduated from high school. He's getting ready to go off to college. He's now in his second year of college, and we actually talk quite often. And I feel like part of my role now at this stage in life, when he's 20, is continuing to reflect to him who I see him to be. He's in this space where he's trying to figure out, who am I? What am I doing with my life? What am I majoring in? What do I want? What do I want in a partner? And so one of the things I feel like I can do as his mother and someone who knows him very well is continue to say, I see this in you, or I'm observing this in you. One of our recent conversations has been about his capacity to focus. And I recently reflected to him that even as a child, he dove deep into topics such as dinosaurs. And then for a while it was Legos. And then for a while, or more recently, it's been golf. His capacity to shut the world out and focus in on a particular topic is like nothing I've seen, especially in a young person his age. So we were talking about this capacity that he has to really focus in and how this might really serve him going forward in whatever he chooses to study or whatever career path he chooses. So what I'm essentially doing is helping him develop his sense of self, develop his ego. And the ego helps us fulfill something that I think is first part of our life is about building the structure of ego so that we can do these things, so that we can produce, we can succeed, we can set goals, we can achieve, we can go after things. This is key. We don't want to obliterate the ego, especially in these early years. This is a slight moving off the topic very briefly, but I feel like it's extremely important to speak this. There's a huge movement towards psychedelic medicine, and I myself am very curious about it and have literally done hundreds of hours of training around this modality for its usefulness in mental health, addiction, PTSD. But I see that if psychedelic medicines are used with people who aren't yet fully developed in their ego, one of the things psychedelic medicines do is they sort of obliterate the ego for the period of time that you're using the medicine. And that can be extremely insightful and educational. But for a young person who's still developing their ego, in my opinion, it can be quite dangerous to obliterate the ego. It can be quite dysregulating. So the development of the ego is so necessary, especially in these early years. Now, there does come a point in our life, typically at the midlife point, 35 to 45 to 50, where essentially we outgrow the ego. The ego, we could call it self-restrictive, meaning the ego is sort of the structure that is holding soul. And there comes a point in time when our soul is outgrowing the shell of our ego. This is when we need techniques and skills and tools and meditation and breakdowns to help us be in more contact with soul. There's a point in our life when really making deeper contact with soul is something that is being asked of all of us. I really see it as an initiation point. So I think soul, which has always been there from early, from our initial entry into these bodies, it starts to show up with more vigor, with more loudness, with more volume around this midlife awakening period. It also starts to show up when we start to feel extremely stuck in our lives. How many of you feel extremely stuck in your life? The great philosopher Socrates, I love this, said that the soul is closer to movement than a fixedness. meaning that when we feel stuck, this is a clear message from the soul that we are detached or disconnected from the soul. So stuckness is when we are disconnected from soul. So if you are feeling stuck right now, it is a clear sign that you are unable to listen, or you're not listening to the calling of the soul. The point of our midlife, I believe, is to start to break down who we thought we were, all of those personas that we took on in the first half of life, so that we can actually begin to settle into who we truly are, beyond all that ego conditioning. So there is a changing or a softening or a loosening of the ego, I believe, or can be if we're heeding the call, in the second half of our life. Carl Jung is very famous for saying real life begins after the age of 40. So this is when we really start to feel in more intently to what our soul is asking of us. So as Jung would say that real life starts after 40, that there is a necessity of sort of breaking down who we thought we were to settle into who we truly are. The Tibetans have another way of talking about it, and it always helps me. I love all the wisdom traditions, and I love sort of understanding myth and understanding different perspectives for how we actually really move forward in our lives. And so the Tibetans, I think this is quite powerful, they sort of believe that when we are born, we're like a singing bowl. And this is actually a beautiful singing bowl that I found in Colorado. It spoke to me. It was in the window of a store, and I was like, so, and I had a teacher once, a sound healing teacher, that said the bowl chooses you instead of you choosing the bowl. So the Tibetans say that, again, we're born like a singing bowl. We are born with a unique resonance. And it is said that each of us and each bowl supposedly has a slightly different tone, a slightly different resonance, a slightly different vibration. Now, as we grow throughout the course of our lives, we start to fill our bowl with ideas of who we are. So I'm going to start to fill my bowl. So I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a Scorpio rising. This is a symbol of the Scorpio. I have 3 children. I was looking for a picture of them in my office, and I don't have a picture of them. But these are little eye bags with a mama otter and her babies. So I have 3 children. So I'm going to add 3 of these in my bowl. I'm going to add a pair of glasses. This is my persona as an intellect, as a deep thinker. I'm going to add my journal, because my journal holds all of my deep emotions and stories about what's happened and who I am. I'm going to add my psychology license in there as well, another aspect of my persona. So by midlife, I mean, I could add so much more in here. I didn't add my role as a daughter, my role as a friend, but these bowls start to fill up. So then, by the time we're in midlife, that's the sound. It's sort of just like a dull thud. It doesn't go on and on. It's like it's filled with so much stuff. So part of our process at midlife is to begin to empty out the accumulated baggage, all of the things, all of the ideas about who that we believe that we are, so that we get back to emptiness. We get back to more spaciousness, so that again, we return to our natural essence. We return to our natural resonance. We return to how we're meant to be. So This is a powerful metaphor, at least it has been for me, to really consider what needs to start to fall away so that I can become more of who I truly am. So this question, as I said earlier, really has always resonated for me, but resonated even deeper because about a month ago I was able to visit the mountain town of Delphi, which is on Mount Parnassus, about 2.5 hours outside of Athens, Greece. And at this particular site, there is an ancient temple. Some say it dates back to about 800 BC. And it's known that at the entrance to the temple were these words, "Know thyself," along with about 100 other maxims, but this was the main one. So upon visiting this site, I was struck by how long humanity has been asking this question: who am I? Who am I? What direction do I go? What do I need? What's important for me? So the reason this site called to me, it really did call to me. In fact, I wasn't planning on going, and I changed my travel plans because there was such a calling to go visit this place. What makes this place in Delphi even more, we might say, interesting is that it was known as the best divination center in the entire ancient world. So at this temple, in fact, I'm sitting above it in this picture, you can see 6 remains of columns. In that temple, there was something called an oracle, also sometimes called a pythia. And these were women. They were actually middle-aged women. They were women above the age of 50. So that I could have been an oracle. And what these oracles did is they actually helped predict the future. They gave answers to people. So people would take long pilgrimages to come to this site. And you can tell in this picture, it's quite high in the mountains. I mean, it was not an easy trip even from Athens. Curving roads. I can only imagine what it would have been like without a car. So people had to take a long travel to get to this spot. Then they had to purify themselves. And there were these baths right outside. In fact, it's not a part of this UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a little off the beaten track. But it, to me, was the most powerful place. And I actually sat at the baths at the spring. You could still hear the spring. I was the only one there. This is where not only the pilgrims would purify themselves, but the oracle herself would come to a private bath and cleanse herself in preparation to be able to provide guidance, intuition, truth. All the pilgrims coming had to bring an offering. They had to bring money, gold, jewels, and then they had to receive the answer. Now, in fact, here's a picture of it. Here is the oracle. It said she would sit on a tripod. People would come, they would ask their questions. There also were clefts or like ridges in the earth, and it's thought that there were sort of a gas or a vapor that would come up. So she was most likely somewhat altered also by that. And she would go into a state where she would provide answers. And this idea is that if you know yourself, then you will know the universe, you will know your answers, you will know how to discern what is best for you, and even in this quote, you will know the gods. So powerful to see that even, 10,000 years ago, people were trying to receive guidance. Now, there's some idea that the guidance given by the oracle was not always the guidance that the person wanted. In fact, it's said that the Trojan War was started because of an answer that the oracle gave. This is what I find most fascinating because I myself experienced it so often, is that you get guidance, you get the answer or a answer. You're provided some clarity, and yet you resist it. You come up with, not yet. I'm not strong enough. I need some more time. I need some more evidence. I need to think about it a little longer. And so there's this resistance that comes. And having been stuck in resistance for so many years, again, this is a piece that I relate to. So you get guidance. You're shown who you are. You're shown what you need to do. I think we all have that instinct in us. We don't need an oracle anymore. The oracle is us. And yet we resist. We resist. What I know so well is that doubt is always going to tell you that it is easier to remain just as you are without any change. This is also, doubt is the voice of the ego saying, you're fine just the way you are. Stay safe. Now, neuroscience, I find this extremely interesting, that neuroscience shows us that when we're at the cusp of making a change, so something is uncertain, we don't know, do I go left, do I go right, what decision do I make? There's a part of the brain that registers uncertainty in the same way that it measures an error. So when we're trying to make a change, our brain is essentially saying, you're making a mistake, you're making a mistake, you're making a mistake. So no wonder we so often say, I can't do this. I can't make this change. This neuroscience research also suggests that uncertainty is scarier than actual physical pain. So you go into your doctor, you know you're going to get a shot, or you go to the dentist, you know you're going to have something done to your teeth. We understand there's going to be pain involved. Because there's going to be physical pain involved, the brain releases norepinephrine. So we get a little bit of calm. We get a little bit of a hit of it's going to be okay. But when we face uncertainty, when we face a decision point where change is going to come, there's no norepinephrine release, which means we usually are faced with anxiety. We are faced with doubt. We are faced with fear. So I think what happens is that we often choose to live a smaller life. We choose to hold back. We choose to play it small. We choose comfort. And there's nothing wrong with this per se, but it gets old after a while because we come back to that familiar feeling of I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Am I wasting my life here? I'm stuck. Let me go back to my slide. I have one here that I want to show. So I believe that if we are facing change, we have to initiate courage. But the deal is, if we choose courage, we can't also choose comfort. You don't get both. If you're choosing courage, you're actually choosing a lot of discomfort. Because if we choose courage, you're going to know failure. You're required to be vulnerable, which means you're required to expose yourself emotionally, mentally, physically. And courage requires us to face uncertainty and risk and pain and rejection. So this is a hard one. Of course, we choose to play it safe. Of course, we hold back, because choosing courage and choosing to go into this arena per se is going to inevitably come with it some challenge and some difficulty. But a life of avoiding difficulty is essentially, I believe, a life of hiding from your own potential. So, do you want to step into your own potential? Do you want to step into what you're here to do, or do you want to play it safe? I think that's one of the key questions for all of us to wrestle with. Now, I have to say this because, gosh, perfectionism stymies me on a regular basis. And I've learned that perfectionism is part of a excessive masculine energy. And I don't mean that it's related to men. We all carry masculine energy, we all carry feminine energy. But sort of an excessive masculine energy looks like perfectionism. It's in our culture. Our culture has a high demand for perfectionism, for things going a certain way. So this makes it really hard for all of us to look at the parts of self that feel a little inferior. It's really hard to look at the parts of the self that include shame or inadequacy or weakness or dependency. Our culture, our patriarchal culture, is set up to help us avoid all of those things. And yet this, I believe, is where we find our healing, when we're willing to look at our weakness and our inadequacy, essentially when we're willing to work with our own shadow. This is how we start to recover our unlived life, the life that we've been sort of avoiding to stay comfortable. This is a book that I'm currently reading. Thank you, Kimberly, if you're on today. The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Francis Weller. It's a phenomenal book. Francis Weller is a psychotherapist. And he put forth this idea of the premature death. It's this idea that we turn away from whole portions of our life. We convince ourselves that I don't really need that part of my life. Give you a couple examples. Maybe we're turning away from our own creative life because we don't have the time. Maybe we're turning away from our own sensual or sexual life because we don't believe that's for us. Maybe we're turning away from our playful, fun-loving life because we're in that serious mode of trying to accomplish and make money and achieve what we need to achieve. So we cut ourselves off from these deep aspects of who we actually are. So we get stuck in this place of avoidance, caution. It's as if we're kind of artfully dodging, living a life of more wholeness and passion. In this book, in this section on the premature death, Francis Weller quotes someone named Diane Ackerman, and I love this so much. She says, I don't want to get to the end of my life and find that I lived just to the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it as well. So I think that question of, are we living into the full expansiveness of our life, or is it quite narrow? So Francis Weller asked two questions, and I actually want to take us in to these questions in more perhaps of a contemplative way before we talk a little bit more about heeding the call of our soul and what this actually means. So let's take a moment. We got some time here to do this. If you are not driving, if you are in a place where you can actually close your eyes and go inward, I would recommend you do this. We'll do this just for about 5 minutes or so. When I go inward, I can already feel my hand wanting to go there. My hand always wants to come onto my heart. So this is my connection inward. Your hands might want to rest at your abdomen or on your thighs. But just this visceral connection in. And then I'm already doing this as well. I'm feeling my body just rock a little bit forward and back. It's a soothing technique. And if the eyes are closed, this is also a signal to the brain that I am going in. I'm taking a moment to go in. So for the next couple moments, shutting out the swirling of the world around us, this process of listening to our soul and knowing ourselves requires us to go in and go down, meaning that we do have to shut out the outer world for us to get the open doorway to our soul, to ourself. So can you feel in your own body what it's like to pull your attention in And then drop your attention down in the body. Maybe your attention can drop all the way down into the navel or even all the way down into the pelvis. And then wherever you've dropped in the body, in and down, is it possible to add some breath? So if your awareness is in your navel, breathing into the navel and breathing out of the navel. Or if your awareness is dropped all the way down to the pelvis or even all the way down to the feet, breathing into the feet and breathing out of the feet. With every exhale that you make, pulling more awareness and attention into yourself and into this very alive present moment, really the only place that is truly alive, the only place that is real, this present moment. Now, as we feel the aliveness of this present moment, continuing to stay with your own breath, continuing to observe sensation in the body, I'd like to pose these powerful questions of Francis Weller. After I pose the question, giving yourself the space to just simply sit in awareness, watching thoughts, images, sensations, feelings, memories, experiences move through, not needing to attach to it, just observing. So, first question. What is the vow your soul is waiting for you to make? What is the vow that your soul has been waiting for you to make? So what is the vow that your soul has been waiting for you to make? And then the second question, what will you have to sacrifice in order for yourself to honor that vow? So just like the pilgrims to the oracle at Delphi had to sacrifice something, had to give something, they had to offer something. What might you have to sacrifice in the life that you are currently living in order for you to honor that vow that your soul is waiting for you to make? So sometimes when we ask ourselves these contemplative questions, we know right away there's an answer that surfaces almost immediately. Other times we might just have to sit in silence, not knowing, maybe our psyche not quite ready for clarity, our discernment. So whatever your experience was today, whether an answer came through quite clearly or you sat in doubt or not knowing, trust that you are in a process. It's a nonlinear process. And that you received exactly what you needed today. Bringing your hands together in front of your heart, let's take a moment to bow to the soul and the wisdom it contains. And if there wasn't any clarity about what your soul is asking you to make a vow for or toward, you can even set that intention that in the coming days, the coming weeks, you might receive some more clarity on what your soul is asking you to do and what sacrifice you might need to make. All right, to come all the way back, you can rub your palms together just as a way to sort of reawaken the senses. Place those hands over the eyes. Let the eyes blink open and then eventually release the hands. I would love to hear from all of you. I know we're on a webinar, which means I can't see you. I prefer to see you, but it might be really helpful for people to see. If anyone wants to be willing to be courageous and step into the arena, remember courage requires vulnerability. What came through? You know, what is the vow that you are needing to make and what might you need to sacrifice? I love Amy says she's excited even though she's not sure what the vow is. Brenda says vow to surrender, to let go of control. Yeah, it's a big one. Danny, this is the one I've been working with in this last week as my shadow is starting to, this is the time that our shadows start to rise up. It just happens. This is the season. This past week had, you know, a big aha in my own self of like, oh, here it is again. And similar to Danny, it's to release my attachment to others' opinions, needing to please people, needing to look a certain way or be a certain way to somehow be safe or be loved. I see a lot of you saying that true, how to be safe or be true to self, and that we do have to sacrifice stagnation, sadness, fear. Such beautiful answers. My soul is telling me to pay more attention to it and lessen the focus on my family. Julie, that is such a good one. And again, goes against culturally, perfectionistically, what we're taught, which is we put other people first. So your soul is speaking to you loud and clear. I need your attention. I need your focus. Jennifer saying a stronger commitment to the physical body, to the vessel. Beautiful. Erin vowed to take care of herself and to let go of doubt. See, I love this. Linda is being asked to give more to others. So some of us are being asked to give more to ourselves, and some of us are being asked to give more to others. The soul knows. The soul knows. And again, if we're in the tight box of perfectionism about what culture tells us or what we believe we're supposed to do, it throws off our capacity to actually really hear what our soul is asking. Karen is being asked to believe that she can heal her own body. Sarah is being asked to step into the flow rather than control. God, that one resonates for me too, right? This need for control that somehow masks as if I can just master myself, then I'll have it figured out rather than stepping into the flow. Yeah, here's another one, being comfortable with rejection and judgment. Letting go of control. Freeing myself from unhealthy relationships, yes. So you see, the soul spoke very loudly to many of us. It's there. It actually has quite a clear voice. We just have to carve out the time and the commitment to listen to it. Thank you all. I'm extremely touched by reading and sort of hearing people's process and knowing that I'm not alone in sort of hearing messages from the soul that are sometimes really hard to follow up on. So just in ending, let's talk briefly I mean, I think we all know that heeding the call is important. I think we all understand it's hard. It's so much easier to stay small. It's so much easier not to make waves. It's so much easier to avoid conflict and avoid potential rejection from people in our circle when we choose to heed the call and step more into alignment with our own soul. But heeding the call, let's start with this one. Why is it important? I mean, this goes without saying. If you are stuck or you're feeling some of these things that you all wrote in the chat box, your soul's trying to get your attention. It knows that you have the potential to lead a more authentic and truthful life. And it wants you to go in that direction, even if it's going to be uncomfortable and it means you got to change some things. The second thing why I think heeding the call is so important is this law of Dharma, that we have a purpose. Each of us has this unique constellation of gifts. We all have something we're needing to add to this culture. And I say this all the time, but this is an extremely relevant time with lots of fear and lots of toxicity. And we all have something to add. And if we're playing it small and holding ourselves back and not listening to soul, staying in that zone of comfort rather than moving into our zone of genius, the world is missing out on what we can offer to it, what we can add to it. And then I think the other reason we have to heed the call is that it brings us to more wholeness. So this was said by Meister Eckhart, again, so long ago, almost 800 years ago. What is this darkness? Shadow. What is its name? Fear. Call it an aptitude for sensitivity, which will make you whole. Call it your potential. So I really believe it is when we go into our own shadow, when we face where we're stuck, when we deal with that fear of rejection, fear of stepping out, everything that you guys were writing in that box. When we're willing to face it, when we're willing to embrace it, see it, be with it, know it. So when I had sort of my own coming face to face with my shadow in this last week of like, oh my God, am I still worrying this much about what people think? Is this really what's still going on? This need to have a particular image? I'm so sick of this, right? Our shadow, we just keep circling around it. Now, I do believe with time we keep evolving to higher levels of consciousness. So we're still potentially working with similar shadow material, but just from a different vantage point. But if we're willing to go look at the shadow, be with it, dance with it, hug the dragon, as Joseph Campbell said, it does make us more whole. Definitely makes us more whole. So I think that the journey is in, the only way out, the only way we get out with more wholeness, with more authenticity, with more realness, maybe with more even joy and contentment and coherence, is we have to go in. We have to go in and we have to go down. So, I'm leading this program called Reclaim. It starts at the end of the month. And by the way, these things on this slide really don't have to do particularly with Reclaim. Now, I do think when we set ourselves up for regular practices, these things happen. So Reclaim might not speak to you. Totally fine. Totally fine. But what I'm encouraging you to consider based on what you put in that chat box, if your soul is speaking to you and it wants you to take a vow and it wants you to sacrifice some things to get there, you need to set up some practices that allow that to begin to happen. So I think what we know is that we need a vessel. So in particular, Reclaim, it's 13 weeks. We meet every week. We have yoga every week. We have Q&A. But your vessel might be, I'm committing to daily exercise, or I'm committing to 40 days of meditation, or I'm committing to going back to therapy every week. It's like we have to create a vessel. We have to create a structure. In fact, the alchemist recognized that when we do deep work, it requires a holding space. So it might be your therapist office. It might be this course, but we need a holding space in which to carry out the depth work. Like, so this is key. We need container, we need structure, right? We need structure. By doing this, by committing to structure, then we can keep our appointment with life. Those are the words of Mary Oliver, the great poet. We each have an appointment. We each have a task, multiple tasks most likely. And it's time to step into it. In my belief, my opinion, my humble opinion, the world needs us more than ever. And so we need to keep our appointment with life. But to do that, we need the structure, we need the vessel. And if we are committed to the structure, again, it might be 13 weeks, it might be a meditation, it might be yoga, it might be a therapist, it might be daily walks with a friend. But when we commit to practices, then it's my experience that revelation always comes. It doesn't come every day. Oh my God, if it came every day, it actually probably would be too much. I meditate every morning without fail. Do I have some intense revelation every day? Absolutely not. But has revelation come through my meditation practice? Absolutely. So if we set ourselves up in regular practice, it's like we're clearing space for the soul to speak up, to provide some kind of insight or revelation for us. So if you're desiring revelation, if you're wanting to go receive from that oracle at Delphi, again, you are the oracle, you need to commit to some kind of structure or practice for that to come forward. And then I also believe that when we're engaged in a structure, we realize we're not alone. So you can create a structure on your own, but by the way, it's so much harder. It's so much harder to say, I'm going to do this all by myself. Even when I started to meditate, the only reason I could stay with the daily practice is I had a friend doing it. And I was like, well, I can't let her down. She's doing it every day. I better do it every day. So we need sort of that accountability, right? So I do encourage you, whatever structure you choose, whatever vessel you choose, find someone to be accountable to. So if you choose, or if you feel like the heroine's journey, reclaim is something that would speak to you, we go in and down. We work to reclaim our inner feminine. Again, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or you're trans. Reclaiming our inner feminine is reclaiming our body, reclaiming our emotions, reclaiming our feelings, reclaiming our intuition, and reclaiming our natural connection to the cycles of life, the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the season. And once we've reclaimed this part of ourself, which, by the way, for all of us has been discarded or has been pushed down because we live in a patriarchal society and world, once we start to reclaim these parts of ourselves, our body and our emotions and our intuition and our natural capacity to be our own oracle, then we can heal the toxic masculine, which is in us. It's in all of us. It's also in the world. What is the toxic or unhealed masculine? It's control. It's overworking. It is needing to be right all the time. It is not allowing yourself to rest. Just go, do, achieve. So we need the reclamation in the feminine to heal that part of ourselves. And then we can start to go through what's called the sacred marriage, the deeper communion of our inner masculine and feminine. So we move into more authenticity and sovereignty. It works. It's amazing. It works. So this program really is for anyone who's in transition, which is probably all of us on some level, or you feel stuck. This is the 4th year in a row that I've taught this. And every year I'm like, I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do it. People are bored of this. I don't want to do this again. And then this time of year, I'm always like, yes, this is necessary. So I have to admit to you that, quite frankly, I'm teaching this again for selfish reasons, for myself, because I know that when I'm committed to going in and down and doing my own shadow work for the next 13 weeks, I feel better. I feel more whole. I come out into the season of spring feeling more like myself than ever before. So It's a beautiful template for guiding us into looking at these parts of ourselves that we've rejected. So we started the end of November. We meet every Tuesday night. It's all recorded. So if you can't make Tuesday night, you get all the videos. You also get 2 yoga classes a week, Q&A calls. We do new moon cacao ceremonies. You also get, this year, this is what's different. You get a printed book. I'll show you this. It's pretty cool. You get this whole heroine's journey book with all kinds of content and all kinds of places to journal and all kinds of visuals. And so you'll get this heroine's journey booklet. We'll send that to you with the portions of cacao as well. So you're all ready for those ceremonies. And then there is a chance as an additional add-on, if you get into this content and it feels like you need some one-on-one work, I do open up some spots to do individual work with me on Mondays. So that's another option. So you can sign up now. In fact, we'll get it in the chat box. It's under the dryogamama.com. And by the way, when I taught this the first time, it was like a $2,000 course. So I've come way down in price, and I've actually gotten way better at honing into the important parts of it. And by the way, because you're here today, we're doing $100 off. Reclaim Early Bird is what you put as the coupon code when you sign up. So it's powerful. But again, if it doesn't speak to you, my encouragement is still to use this time of year to go in and work with your shadow. This is the ideal time. It's sort of like if we don't use this time of year, the shadow is still there and it's still functioning and it's still driving our behaviors. But as soon as we start to see it, embrace it, listen to it, work with it, listen to it, we start to have a whole different experience of our life. So I'm a big believer in it, and I think having guides and having other people doing similar work only amplifies the process and in a way makes it easier. Okay, sorry you guys. I think I must be, let me get, so the code is Reclaim Early Bird. I'll put that up one last time. Yeah, so Reclaim Early Bird is the discount code. So, yeah, I'm going to actually probably do another one of these conversations in 2 weeks. There's a lot stirring for me. There always is in the fall. Fall traditionally has always been my hardest season, just in terms of my own mental well-being. And so I do think that this process of going in and down and being with all the hard stuff this time of year has really helped me. I do not fear winter in the same way that I used to. It's all online. And sorry, y'all, let me get that. I was thinking that maybe I had my assistant on here today, but we didn't talk about it beforehand. So let me get that. It's all online. The reason we do it online is I was actually going to add a more in-person option for this year. But then as I sat in my own discernment and my own intuition, this is the time of year. Oh, Kimberly, you are on. Thank you. When we, what I also find is that this time of year, it gets dark very early, and the process of going in and down is a very personal process. And so why it's great to be in a space with a bunch of people that actually is kind of going against the natural order of what this time of year is about. And so that's why I just decided to keep it as an online process. But we do it instead of as a webinar. This is a webinar, so I can't see you. You can just see me. We do it as a meeting, so we can actually see each other. Always space and time for questions and conversations. So once we get going on it, it is in a meeting format versus a webinar format. I see and hear Tuesday sessions are 90 minutes, 5:30 to 7 p.m. And And I see Brenda say this. Brenda, I think you've done it maybe 3 times with me or 2 times with me. She said it's been life-changing. I did not pay her to show up today and say that. She's done it twice. Okay. Yes, and I will type the code again. It's just reclaim early bird, all one word. And if you have trouble, you can always email us at info@heartlandyoga.com. So thanks everyone for showing up. I think the other piece that I want to just end with today, this is, I'm always in my own process of knowing thyself, and I sort of feel like every decade it's looked a little bit different. Now that I'm into my decade, my 50th decade here, what I'm noticing in my own process of knowing thyself is some additional softness. And I think when we work with our shadow, when we work with our inadequacies, when we work with the parts of ourselves that we've exiled or pushed away, what's really required is a lot more self-compassion, a lot more softness, instead of the frustration, the judging, the anger itself. And so that's going to be a part of this as well, that I think is really moving me deeper into my process of knowing myself, that when I can add the piece of more kindness for myself and, oh yeah, sweet one, here you are again at the same issue. All right, here we are again. That has been extremely helpful. So we're going to add that in. Amy says the code didn't work. Please reach out. I'm sorry about that, Amy. I think it should reclaim early bird, RECLAIMEARLY bird, but I will get on right now and double check that. Otherwise, reach out to us. Thank you all for being here. This will be up on YouTube within the next hour or so. So if there's anyone in your life that you feel like would benefit from hearing about this conversation of knowing thyself and why it's sort of a process that happens to many of us, or probably all of us, this initiation that happens, send them the video. And as always, we will see you next month for another Wisdom Wednesday, and we may add a bonus Wisdom Wednesday in 2 weeks. Stay tuned. Love to you all. Yes, thank you, Kimberly, for getting those things in the chat box. Couldn't do any of this without you, so I appreciate you. All right, everyone, much love. Take care of yourself in this season of darkness, in this season of death, in this season that eventually leads to rebirth. But there is a lot of letting go, and there's a lot of releasing, and there's a lot of going into the dark. So just be gentle with yourselves in this process. It's real. It's real. So, all right, much love. Mwah.